Welcome back, dude and dudettes, to another wild episode of Send It Mate. We're here to talk about all things hunting and outdoors. And today, we've got something that'll keep your gear running smoother than a dingo's getaway.
That's right. Our show is brought to you by High Caliber, the gun and knife oil company that knows how to keep your firearms and blades in tip-top shape.
High Caliber is like the secret sauce for hunters, anglers, and outdoorsy folk everywhere. It's like the magic potion that makes your gun and knives happier than a dog with two tails.
You know, guys, I've been using High Caliber oil for a while now, and let me tell you, it's the duck's nuts. My rifle practically sings a lullaby when I take it out hunting.
And speaking of lullabies, ever tried sneaking up on a deer with a squeaky gun? It's a prime way to end up with no venison in the freezer. You'll be hungrier than a vegan at a bacon festival.
Absolutely. But with High Caliber oil, your gun will be quieter than a ninja in moonlight. You'll be stalking your prey with the grace and stealth of a mountain lion.
High Caliber doesn't just keep things quiet, it also prevents rust and corrosion, so you won't find your gear looking like it spent a season at the bottom of a creek.
That's right, and for you knife enthusiasts out there, High Caliber has got you covered too. Your trusty blade will slice through anything smoother than butter on a hot biscuit.
So, folks, don't let your gear become a rusty, squeaky mess. Head on over to highcaliber.com.au and grab a bottle of their oil today.
And if you use the code SENDITMATE at checkout, you'll get a special discount. I say again, use the code SENDITMATE for all your oil slick, stealthy hunting needs.
Thanks to High Caliber, you'll be sending it in style and silence.
So, gear up, oil up, and send it, mate. High Caliber, the ultimate oil for the ultimate hunter.
G'day everyone, we're back for another episode of Send It Mate Podcast. I'm Caleb.
I'm Josh.
I'm Couchy.
And we've got our first guest of Season 7. Absolute ripper for you tonight. We've got Jake Nicholson. Jake, how you going, mate?
Good fellas, and yourselves?
Can't complain. It's a beautiful night. It's a Sunday night here in Adelaide, and it's been absolutely cracker weather today.
It's been all right all weekend. Yeah. Pity the deer weren't out, but that's all right.
Yeah, well, I think we'll get into a bit of why that might be. And you boys were in the southeast hunting this weekend, weren't you?
Yeah, we were. So we're on a private block down in the southeast.
How'd you go?
It was pretty much a flop, so...
Well, I'm here doing the podcast, so there's no butchering going on at home, so yeah.
I bumped for 5 deer early on in the thick of it, so... And then after that, no one saw anything.
Nothing.
So for the 2 days. But yeah.
Average trip.
That's what it is.
Which, as you were saying, is why we have our guest on tonight, Jake.
Correct, Jake. So, mate, can you just tell us a little bit about yourself? And there's a pretty important reason why we've got you on tonight.
So I'm a 32-year-old bloke from down in Mount Gambier, South Australia. Got a wife and 3 young children. Hunting has been a part of my life, for deer hunting in particular, probably the last 12 years or so. Before that, a little bit on the farm doing spotlighting, aroos and that sort of stuff. So I'm reasonably new in the whole sort of deer hunting scene, I guess, in the big picture wise. But, definitely something I'm hugely passionate about. Basically started doing it with mates, and it sort of grew from there, and sort of got wound up in the political stuff of it a little bit through the ADA branch, the Southeast branch that, have met you guys through as well. Sort of started a fire within me to sort of try and protect what we've got, or not just protect but advocate for hunting and deer alike. So, yeah, it's been pretty hot scene at the moment too. Fair bit happening. Right?
To say the least. And for anyone who hasn't seen, there's been some a bit on social media. Jake's personally put a lot out on his social media, but also on ABC. If anyone's caught a little bit about the heli culling that's going on in South Australia, well, it's Australia-wide, but especially here in South Australia, we're quite passionate about what's been going on there and being against it, basically. So, Jake, can you just fill us in, or the listeners at home, about what's been going on there with the heli culling?
Yeah, so it's sort of developed pretty full on. Like heli culling has been a part of the South Australian deer scene for quite some years now. It might be 10 years or something like that, 10 or 12 years. But in 2019, the legislation changed from deer being just listed as a pest species to being a species that they want to eradicate. So that was sort of the first writing on the wall on, that the scene was going to change. Not a huge amount did in the short term, but certainly in the last, 12, 24 months, it's really started to amp up. Pressure's been increased on landowners, not only just to have voluntary access, but it's basically being legally forced upon these landowners now to participate in the program. All deer in South Australia are under the crosshairs, basically, which is just changing the whole dynamic of how the state's been for a long time.
What's their reasoning on why? Like, I understand management, but eradication seems a little bit heavy-handed.
Oh, look, yeah, certainly agree. It's, from what I can gather, because the estimated population number of deer in South Australia hasn't been seen to absolutely blow out yet. They see it as an achievable goal. So they've basically tried. They're saying they've tried the management aspect, which I don't think they have properly, certainly. But they're saying, with a reasonable low number, they're projecting it at 40,000, that they might be able to achieve eradication, and that's why they've set themselves that goal, because it seems to be achievable. Whereas, Victoria or Queensland or whatever, they're talking millions when they're talking numbers of deer in the state. So it's already past that point, really. You've got absolutely no hope of eradicating an animal in that strength in numbers. But, like I've put on some of my stuff on social media, that eradication of any species on mainland Australia has never happened before. Mm-hmm. So, rabbits, foxes, goats, whatever. It's purely unachievable. And there's documentation on what you actually need to be able to achieve eradication. And I think there's 5 key points. I can't remember them off the top of my head, but South Australia really doesn't tick any of those boxes to be able to make it happen with deer either. So, they've set themselves an unachievable goal, but it doesn't mean they're not going to pour millions of dollars of taxpayers' money in the meantime trying to make it happen. And, our way of life and the deer in the meantime are going to suffer.
Is it they brought it down to just an environmental hazard, having the deer here? Because a lot of people say that it's, a detriment to our native flora and fauna and all the rest of it. And you're like, well, is it? Like, are they actually causing that much damage to our plant life where they need eradicating? And if not, where's the happy medium where we can have the deer and have our plants?
Yeah, exactly. There's that whole big argument about, like you're saying, the native scrub and whatnot, and then obviously the impact they have on the farming industry as well. And a lot of that stuff is all done on projections. Mm-hmm. And some of the stuff I've looked into, the numbers are just out of control. They don't really add up in my eyes. And there's been it's all negative arguments. There's no positives. It's like obviously the negative impact a mismanaged animal can have, but what about the positive impact? A well-managed animal can have too. Mm-hmm. There's been studies done in other states for deer and hunting alike and what it generates for the state's coffers, and that hasn't been done in South Australia. So, there's a lot of negative information that's just spread everywhere, and it sort of plays at people's heartstrings, I guess. Yeah.
I think probably the biggest issue we have with the eradication of deer is the method. Now, as hunters, we all love getting out and about and hunting deer and then utilising the meat. I think that's the biggest thing that people need to understand, is that for us hunters, collecting that meat to share with our family and friends and for ourselves is such a major part of what we do. And with heliculling, that it simply isn't happening. Though that meat's just being left there to rot. And I think a lot more people need to learn out there in the wider community what's going on. So, I mean, I definitely applaud what you've done, Jake, in trying to bring that out to the mainstream media, and videos like we saw on ABC that you'd shared, where this helicull has gone on, and then there's hunters actually in the area. In danger. I think that's, unfortunately, we actually joked about it on the podcast about, well, is that what it's going to take for it to make it to the mainstream media? Someone's almost getting shot by a helicopter. So it's crazy.
And really, that's what it's had to get some sort of media traction on the subject. It's all positive stuff on the culling side that you see, and the some of the questions raised, and they've always got the right answers ready to go. But yeah, this is probably one of the first times where, it's actually put the government and maybe particular ministers or whatever under the pump for what's actually happening. And that's simply only because someone had their phone on them on the time and actually got footage of something like that happening. I've had so many messages from people that have been put in a similar situation that, were more concerned for their safety than actually getting video footage of it happening too. So, yeah, it's scary. This sort of stuff's happening. There's been property shot without permission. I'm not trying to lodge some sort of smear campaign against the government. This is what always happens, but we just want them to be held accountable. And obviously public safety is the absolute number one issue. You don't have to be a hunter. This could have been on someone's property, simply out farming or out bushwalking, and had a helicopter whiz over their head and start shooting. It's just not good enough. So,
what is the culling company? What's their response to that? Especially if they're flying on a property they don't have permission to fly over and that low and shooting?
Yeah, so it was a PIRSA run program where that happened, and I did an interview with Liz Rymel from the ABC. She happened to see the video on social media, and she thought it was newsworthy and just quizzed me on what happened. And then, she basically asked the suitable government departments on, what's happened and a response. Obviously, you want the news to be transparent. You can't just have someone, put in an article or a video that's falsified or something like that. So she wanted to just clarify what had happened. And so she contacted the Landscape Board and PIRSA. The Landscape Board didn't want to make comment. They said they might put out a statement, which I thought was a little bit disappointing. But Brad Page from PIRSA, which is basically one of the key operators of that program, got up and did an interview with Liz on the radio and answered a few of those questions. So it was nice for Brad to do that. Look, he was very apologetic for what had happened at that time, and sort of blamed old mapping was the only reason.
It's not good enough.
Old mapping and not knowing that the property had changed hands prior. And that property actually changed hands 3 months before that helicopter shoot. Mm-hmm. So they've said they've changed their process in bits and pieces, but it'd be nice for that to all be clarified. Mm. They've done an internal investigation, which, I don't agree with. It would be nice if it was done by a third party, because if an accident happens in my workshop, it'd be Safe Work that would come and investigate it. I don't investigate it myself. It just doesn't really add up with me. So, yeah, it'll be interesting to see what comes of it. We've got a couple of pollies from Adelaide that have contacted me that wanted to bring it up in question time either this week or next week or whenever Parliament met next.
Nice.
And Rob, one of the hunters, I'm saying Rob's first name because he got on the ABC and actually made comment the other day and was happy for his first name to be out there. Rob is lodging an incident report with the ATSB, which is the Australian Transport Safety Bureau. They've got an actual aviation sector, so it'll be federally investigated. So regardless of what PIRSA have done, I'm pretty sure this will be looked into further, and it's a step above them. So we'll be pretty happy with that.
So from, like you were saying, you got a few messages before of previous people that have been in the same situation. How many would you say off the top of your head sort of people have experienced this?
Helicopter in close proximity would probably be 5 or 6.
Yeah.
And I'm far from a big Instagram account holder. Like, I've got a few followers and whatever, and it's just people that see your stuff.
Yeah.
Have got to be in and I was sort of searching for South Australian material or whatever. It was alarming. It was quite a few. I got a lot of photos of, wasted deer, poorly shot deer, stuff that was probably more than coincidental, like wounded animals on trial cams days after a helicopter had been over, bits and pieces like that. Got a bit of stuff. It was quite disheartening. Yeah. As hunters, we sort of get portrayed as these cold, hard killers, but we're nearly all of us are very ethical, compassionate, and conservationists, really. So we want things done right, and we know it's not being done right at the moment. And like you mentioned earlier, just how wasteful the program is just grinds at everyone's gears so much. A lot of people don't know that.
Yeah.
Well, could you imagine the scrutiny if you're a singular hunter out there that had messed up like that on someone else's property, shot, in close proximity to a landowner? You would pretty much be looking hefty fines and or jail time.
Yeah, you'd be dragged over the coals. An absolute example would be made over you, and it'd be front page news sort of stuff. And that's what's so disappointing, and sort of how I ended up getting brought into the whole situation was these guys went to the police after the incident, and also reported it to the government departments, and left both of those scenarios feeling as if they were the guilty ones. There was sort of no remorse from the responsible bodies, and basically just tried to brush it off their shoulders and sweep it under the rug. So, it certainly hasn't been dealt with in a nice way. And, like you said, if the roles were reversed, it'd be just, chalk and cheese.
100%. I'm just thinking of that. Like, as soon as firearms are involved, you have to make sure you are following to the letter of the law, like 100%. Like, there's no excuse of, it was an old map and I was on that land because I thought the boundary was here. But no, before you do anything, you have to make sure you've got the latest info. You are in where you're allowed to be and not anywhere else. No jumping fences if you're unsure. Like,
well, it just made me think, like, from an ADA perspective, on if you're caught on the wrong land, it's an instant 5-year ban from the Southeast branch. So even just in a little hunting organisation, a little whoopsie like that's 5 years. I know it's probably means nothing to the public, but you guys know what I'm talking about. And these guys just brush it off and sorry. Sorry's not good enough.
I didn't say that.
See? Like,
I was going to say, you yell at your missus wrong.
Brought out some beauties though with that. Like, that whole video sort of went viral a little bit, and I know I think it was the ABC Instagram, it's over 300,000 views, and I think on mine it's over 100K. And some of the comments you get, it sort of really opens your eyes. There's people saying, it serves himself right because he wasn't wearing camo. Because he sorry. And you think, well, no, like, the helicopter wasn't meant to be there. It doesn't matter what he was wearing. And there's all crazy shit like that. But it doesn't matter. I shouldn't have been there. So
Have you had any sort of death threats or anything like that from the public from that video and things like that? Because you hear a lot of like these anti-hunters, like, the hunter should die. Sort of.
I haven't had anything too nasty like that. I've had a couple of people, obviously greenies against killing, whatever, might try and target you. Now you get put in the spotlight a little bit. they see you as a bit of a target and will flick through your photos and say, well, you're a cold-hearted killer and, you got blood on your hands and all that sort of bullshit, which is just water off a duck's back for me. I've had a couple of people that have thought it was me in the video and then have got this big conspiracy theory that, because I'm anti-helicopter and anti-eradication, that I've deliberately gone out and put myself in that situation, to get the media to then, try and expose it and create a false story. But, yeah, it definitely wasn't me. It's guys that I've never met before. It's just, they approached me when I was looking for material on culling itself, good, bad or improper, and they've just reached out looking for a little bit of justice. And, yeah, it's sort of a nice feeling that I think I've started the ball rolling to maybe provide that for them a little bit since they didn't get it initially. But, yeah, just really get it into the public's eye on what's really happening in the southeast of South Australia or just South Australia in general at the moment.
Do you know the ways about how they go about trying to shoot on the private properties? Like, I've sort of heard that they're sort of, I don't know, probably trying to throw a strong hand out there that's sort of forcing property owners to be able to let them shoot on the land. But do you know the process they go about?
It was always voluntary. Back in the day, they'd approach landowners where they knew they had deer, or they had concerns, and they would offer it to you basically free of charge. And hey, there's plenty of people that jumped on that might be any deer or had wildly problematic numbers, or may have had hunters there that didn't do the job or whatnot. Like, it's certainly a tool that is useful if done properly and ethically, and hopefully one day resourcefully. Like, I think it's always going to be a part of the deer hunting scene. But yeah, in recent times, they've actually started doing thermal counts of deer, as well as the thermal, like shooting and then thermal shooting and other shotgun shooting and whatnot. But yeah, monitoring numbers on your property, and that could be done without permission. And then with the change of legislation, if you weren't seeming to being able to make a decent enough effort to eradicate deer on your property, they would start putting pressure on you. But it's got to the point now that if you haven't removed all the deer from your property, they can issue you with an action order, a legal document saying, you can't do it, we can. So there's all these facts and figures at the moment saying, we've got 95% of farmers on board with helicopter culling. Well, that's because you've basically forced the last 30 or 40 into it. Legally, they've got no other choice. So, yeah, you see all these numbers thrown around half the time. It just suits their argument. But, yeah, literally now it's, they'll give you, a number of deer that were on your property, and you have to exterminate them, and which some people have met those targets. The deer are transient. They move around. They're a wild animal. You could have 10 on your place one day. You could have 100 the next, or vice versa. Oh, I know of a landowner that had 12 counted on his property. He went out and shot 12 in the next week. They did another thermal flyover. He had no deer on his property, so he, ticked all the boxes. They do another flyover down the track. He's got deer on his property again. So now you're not compliant. It's just a vicious cycle. And that will be never ending, regardless of what they do. But yeah, the pressure is legal pressure now. So it's just totally different. Landowners that might have been managing deer on their property for decades that wouldn't have dreamt of having government-based culling done on their property are being forced into it.
Is the consequence just like a fine or what?
Yeah, I think there's a pretty hefty fine involved with not meeting the action order, but then obviously there would be the legal stuff that's going to go on with it over and above that long term. It's not something where, you might just cop the fine and play on. It's substantial. Yeah. I could find out what that is. It wouldn't be hard to find, but yeah, it's reasonably hefty.
Yeah, wow.
So this makes me wonder, because obviously there's Brinkworth, in the southeast, and you know, he's obviously known for having a game reserve, a high fenced game reserve. I have heard they're trying to pressure him into them culling his property from Chopper. I don't know how true that is.
Yeah, I've got to be careful here because I've got a bit of a conflict of interest with Brinkworth because I still act as the property liaison officer for the ADA and deal with Brinky. But public knowledge, yeah, obviously, definitely, he's got a game ranch, and it is one of the biggest style game ranches like that in the Southern Hemisphere. It's a very unique situation where you've got basically 100,000 acres of working farmland with very minimal internal deer fences, where you've got large numbers of deer. So they are his stock. Yes, they are a farmed animal, but in previous years they've never been tagged because they were never yarded. They were never, bought in small numbers and, tagged on a truck and let go or anything like that. They've bred up on that property. So the problem now with the farmed deer legislation is that all deer within an enclosure need to be tagged. And obviously that goal is completely unachievable for Brinkworth and the Water Valley program. So, yeah, that's been discussed with them and the government now, and really how that's going to end, nobody knows. There's been, obviously big discussions had by both parties, but there's no clarity at this stage how it's all going to work out because it's just such a unique situation.
Definitely. Just back on the aerial culling side of things, Jake, is the use of shotguns unique to South Australia? Do you know? Because aerial culling goes on in a few states in Australia, but I'm kind of keen to learn how shotguns came about. Like, personally, I heard that it was under the guise of R&D, and that's how they were allowed to use shotguns, which is probably, definitely isn't the most ethical way of aerial culling. Do you know much about that?
I've started reading about it a little bit lately, and there's other guys, mates of mine, that are pretty passionate about it and oppose it, that have sort of helped me along the way. And it's definitely, there is federal guidelines on shooting deer out of a helicopter with a shotgun. I don't think it's legal in every state. Pretty sure it's being done in Victoria. I don't know about Queensland. I reckon it might be Queensland or New South Wales. They don't, from memory. But yeah, it's reasonably new. And there's a study that's been done in South Australia that sort of proves its efficiency. But that document was basically built by the Landscape Board, PIRSA, and the Invasive Species Council. So you've got all bodies that have the same goal of, eradicating deer and being as efficient as possible and spending this government money, that have provided this document from a trial program that they did. So you could soon spend some money and get a document made on how unethical and inefficient it is as well, if you wanted to. So, there's supporting documents, but there's none that don't support it. So the main concerns with the shotgun is obviously the proximity of the animal, how close you've got to be to take it. The lethal range is between, under 30 metres. So they're saying they like to take shots between 10 and 30 metres. So you can imagine the stress that's being put on an animal being chased by a helicopter in that proximity. It'd be hair-raising, even for people just having it fly over your head at that bloody distance, let alone cased with a semi-auto buddy going at you. But it's the whole flow on it. Obviously you've got the concern with the stress that's putting on the animal, and then how lethal the shotgun is versus a centerfire rifle. That the impact, that inertia, the damage that a high caliber rifle does to an animal to take its life. And then the overkill policy they're using, it's like 3 to 5 shots per animal. I'm seeing photos with shots, because a lot of them are overhead. It's in the back, it's back legs, it's nasty looking stuff. And the amount of lead, because it's, I think they're using SGs, the amount of lead that's putting into the animal is then another issue, because you've got an animal that's riddled with lead that is then eaten by meat-eating bird life, wedge-tail eagles. There's some shorebirds that are endangered that are meat eaters that could cop lead induction from that, and then the soakage into the soil too. I think one of the facts the boys rallied up, if they hit the 40,000 target with the shotgun, it would be 5,000 kilos of lead sprayed in to South Australian parks and farmland. So 5 tonne.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah.
And just talking about the waste of meat, 40,000 animals at a conservative 35 kilos average of usable meat per animal is 1.4 million kilos of venison that's going to be laying on the ground, wasted.
Yeah.
That's the worst part about it. I don't understand why that's not a commodity. I mean, you take a step back and look at goats. Goats used to be hunted, and then suddenly there was a dollar value put on goats, and then boom, suddenly no colour, no nothing. They're all rounded up, mustered up, sold, live weight.
Yeah.
No one complains about it.
And that's another perfect example of how an introduced animal can be pictured or valued by society too. Mm-hmm. You look at, like you're saying, goats can be worthless to being worth hundreds of dollars per head. You've got rabbits that are, you've basically tried to eradicate, but during the World War years and the Depression, it kept hundreds, thousands, probably millions of Australians alive, whereas they're pretty well worthless now. Like, yeah, the value of an animal can change very quickly. So to eradicate a species that seems right at a current given time, it could be the wrong decision later as well. So.
All right, so the big question, I guess, is how do we change this? What's the next step? And would it be valuable to see deer changed to a game species, not pest by law? Because then they're going to get rights.
Definitely, that's, that would be every hunter's dream, really, is for, in South Australia, is the animal to get the recognition we see it deserving. But because this is legal legislation now, to get the legislation changed is not an overnight process. And very rarely do you see legislation change in that direction as well. Once it goes down this sort of path, very rarely does it go back. So where to from here, I really don't know. We know it's an unachievable goal. Regardless of what they do, there's always going to be deer in the landscape in South Australia, but it's not going to be what it has been. When the money runs out, are they going to build up and we're going to end up back here? We don't know. But I think all we can do in the short term is make sure our voices are heard as best as possible. And the only way we can really do that is through the political system. So it's a matter of voicing your opinion with your local members. And when there's opportunities to, meet at a country cabinet or something like that, where you can actually go and just be a regular person and voice your opinion, we've got to do it. And as hunters, we probably don't do that enough across the board. We're a pretty sort of in-house group where, we definitely all communicate with each other, but we don't really get out into the public too much, where we probably need to. And that's like your podcast. This sort of stuff's great for that. And there's getting more and more of that stuff out there. And yeah, it's a reason why I'm here tonight. It's probably something that I hadn't thought about doing in the past, and I'm a little bit out of my comfort zone, but it's for the good, getting our voices out there and promoting our way of life.
100%. It's definitely something we're passionate about on the podcast, is spreading the news and getting all different sort of points of view on and people's experiences. That's what we love, learning and sharing with everyone that's out there that wants to listen. It would be great to get things out there on a much bigger scale into the mainstream media. So it's good that you've been able to, I guess, get a foot in a little bit. But we definitely need much more. We definitely need a united front from all the hunters out there to make sure we communicate with each other and then have that united front and get it out there into the mainstream.
Well,
It's sort of something that we've started working on in the background. Couple of guys in particular from the southeast that have been involved in the deer scene for forever, that might not be as tech savvy as others or whatever. We're talking about forming a reasonably small group, and somehow collecting a lot of this stuff and making sure that we're all working together. So whether it'll end up being Facebook and an Instagram account where we portray a lot of this stuff, but there's something sort of happening in the background that we're working on to try and get the hunter's voice out there a little bit more. It's all sort of only in the early works, but it's something where, a few of us are going to try and work on together. So
it's great to hear.
is it something that so we have established companies here in Australia like the ADA, like why aren't they getting involved? It's literally in their name. Like, why aren't they getting involved with it all and being more vocal and political?
Yeah, it's been a question I've definitely put to them, and a lot of it gets back to legal risk and exposure. Obviously, they voice themselves as the deer people. If you're talking about the ADA in particular, their attitude is they work from the top and then progress down. So, they're saying their representatives are rubbing shoulders with people at a federal level, and then that will have a flow down effect into the states and whatnot. I personally, have taken on this task of advocacy with no connection to the ADA whatsoever, because they didn't want to have that connection and the legal risk with what I was doing, obviously. So, I would love to see them do more in South Australia. What and how, I don't know. They might say they're doing stuff that we don't know about. Yeah, I'm unsure. But it's not just the ADA. There's, I think I saw something from the Shooters Union the other day saying that they'd love to see shooters as a part of the method for controlling deer numbers. But then, it contradicted what hunters would want because they said they agree with the eradication goal. So there's probably not enough, like you're saying, consistency or continuity between shooters, hunters, whatever, and how to achieve that. I really don't know. Strength in numbers, it's what we need. You look over in the States at the NRA or someone like that. It's just purely numbers and money driven that actually gives you some sort of leverage with the government and what happens, whereas we just don't have that as hunters in Australia. Like, I think the ADA's got 5,000 members, I think Victoria's got 48,000 listed deer hunters when it comes to the licensing part. Why aren't they members of the ADA or that sort of thing? It's just, we need, I don't know how to make it happen, but we need to unite somehow.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's always baffled me because I don't even understand why gun shops aren't doing it. They don't have a big display at the gun shop because every shooter and hunter's going to go in there, a big sign saying support this candidate for your state or your local area, here, donate, GoFundMe, whatever. Like, I don't understand it because they're their customers. Why aren't they doing something about it?
It was interesting. Just made me thought of something that there was a chap I was talking to, I can't remember his name, that had a gun shop, and we were talking about this eradication thing and how, it might long-term affect cash flow of the business if, there's less deer to shoot and whatnot. He said, tongue-in-cheek at the moment, it's great because he just got an order for, it might have been a couple of pallet loads of 308 or SGs or something for the helicopter program.
Yeah.
So
See, if I was a gun shop owner and I knew that was going to the chopper dudes, I'd be like, nah, find someone else, mate. Your money's not, in my eyes, your money ain't worth a dime here, man. Hit the road, Jack.
exactly.
That'd
Just
be
fun.
me.
Yeah, there's always two sides of the argument, isn't there? Like,
Yeah.
Unfortunately, it comes to a business decision sometimes.
Well, I don't understand, like, as this is, I've said this before, and it's a little bit how you're going, but the shooters themselves on the chopper, I don't understand where their moral compasses line. And I get it that they're going to be like, if I don't do it, someone else is going to get to make money. Wrong attitude. You say no, the next person says no, period. Done. End of story. You've got hunting for your kids for the rest of your generations.
it'd be nice if that had happened, but you know what money's like. Money's the driver of everything.
Money talks.
Yeah, but when the deer are gone, when the goats are gone, when the pig are gone, when the rabbits are gone, the foxes are gone, they ain't got no more money coming in.
That's not going to happen, though.
You know,
There's still, I'd say there's still plenty of shooters out there that don't hunt, man. And if they're the ones doing it, then they'd go, oh, well, so what? I'm getting a paycheck. Unfortunately, not everyone is going to always align with our way of thinking. But, yeah, this is why we all got to sort of unite with one voice and fight back. I think it's good to see. I think that's how we got to do it. I think it's the point now we have to no more like flying under the radar and keep a low profile, and that's how we'll get through and not get things shut down. It's kind of got to a place now where it's just got to be fighting, fight back.
Yeah, it does, and I think we need to maintain a very positive portrayal of what hunting is all about, and especially for us, deer hunting. But in saying that, we need to support all forms of legal hunting. You might not be a duck hunter, but you see plenty of petitions or questionnaires or material that might be required to support duck hunting. We need to support each other in that respect. But yeah, get positive material out there. I've seen some stuff that Chassa have done recently, which has been pretty cool about duck hunting and families being involved with that and how rewarding it can be. We just need to keep getting that message out there, so people are aware of why we do it, and how good it can be for yourselves, for your families, and your friends.
We bang on about it all the time about sharing what we do. Obviously, pick your audience, but if you share what you do, the amount of people we talk to that firstly don't even know deer exist in Australia, if they actually knew that they were getting culled in the way they were versus a hunter going out there and ethically taking an animal, then utilising the meat, sharing it around. If the wider majority of people knew about that sort of stuff, then you'd easily have people take up the cause as well. So it's important to get that out there.
No, most certainly.
Excellent.
Definitely.
You were saying before that you don't think that they've managed the deer well, like from, I'm guessing, PERS's side of perspectives or whatever. Obviously, the ADA do their own deer management through the properties that they're able to shoot on. Private property have their own management through, I guess, hunters sort of paying to go shoot on their properties. How would you change that to try and manage that better?
Obviously, one of the big issues is the access to Crown land, national park, conservation parks. I think one box you'd have to tick immediately to try and make it work would be to mirror, a similar system to, say, Victoria. When I talk to local pollies or, not just local pollies, but it might be, Adelaide-based politicians about that, a lot of the time the answer's been that the parks areas are smaller and, it could be more dangerous. But in this day and age with technology, you could have booking systems. You could lock out parks for certain periods of time to control animals. It's not really an excuse.
It's not.
So, like we've said with the ADA stuff, the booking system, all that sort of stuff, it works pretty seamlessly. Yeah. Like you could mirror that on a big scale. But yeah, having that land, shot by hunters would be a really big step. It would also be hugely positive when it comes to turnover for the state, when it comes to hunting. Similar sort of research has been done in other states where it generates hundreds of millions of dollars flow-on income for a state. So that would be the first thing for me that would need to be done. Secondly, I think there needs to be some sort of management of the landowners and hunters alike. It can't just be willy-nilly where you expect everyone to be responsible. That's not always going to happen. You can't have little safe havens where deer numbers are just going to explode and create problematic numbers. They need to be managed properly. So farmers and hunters would have to be responsible and sort of managed as such. And that could even be done by some sort of incentive as well. You look at like the bounty on foxes or wild dogs. That could be possibly done with deer too, which would promote deer numbers to be taken and not harboured in areas. They would be the two big things, I think, that would have to change, in my eyes, to make South Australia a state where you could have continual deer hunting and not have issues. I think you would always have to have some sort of state involvement when it comes to managing that. There might be areas that have to be helicopter shot or thermal shot or whatnot, but it would need to be done, I think, resourcefully, where the animals are retrieved and used, even if it's for blood and bone and they get ground. It's $2 a kilo they make it, and at least it's going into something. It's not just feeding foxes and bloody cats and all the other issues. So, yeah, in my eyes, that would be great. You try and explain that to people, and whether it'll ever get anywhere, I don't know. But you guys got any other ideas? What are your thoughts?
Oh,
That was the first thing I thought of, was sort of some land to be able to be hunt on, like sort of having
public land.
Public land, that's the word I was looking. They had private in my head. Public land to be able to shoot on, because that's the biggest step to gain access to those points where just harbour deer.
Well, that's where a lot of the numbers have just blown out. And it's interesting, you look back through a lot of the figures these are all accessible by the general public too, but there's certain parks that have, obviously not had hunter access and have been helicopter shot for years, and they're still shooting similar sort of numbers out of a lot of those parks consistently. So where the government are the only people responsible for controlling those deer numbers, they can't achieve this eradication target. They're maintaining a number. So, if they can't even keep their own house in order, it's disappointing that they can then force surrounding landowners to participate in something that we know is going to fail.
Yeah.
It's true. And let's be honest, they have a culling program that will target certain properties at certain times, and then there's a big gap in between. As you've said, Jake, like deer move in and out, they're transient. So you've got to have a presence over a wider area at more time to actually be able to manage those numbers. So
that's what you could do with hunters. If you had a combined effort where you've got a large amount of ground hunting pressure everywhere, that's going to help balance out deer numbers, not just in the breed-up population number, but actual diversity of the animals in certain areas, because they're going to be pressured and pushed around. Yep. And then, you could specifically target areas that is going to work with the chopper, that you can't control the numbers with, or the hunters can't achieve the numbers in areas.
Yeah, and I don't think the excuse that some of the state parks are too small is really an excuse, because I don't know if you've ever used the Motor Explorer up the Victorian hunting areas, some of those parcels are
tiny spots,
tiny.
Like 40 hectares. You're like, yeah, okay. Cool.
Got to be careful with that. Sometimes bloody traffic islands in the middle of Melbourne have got purple.
It's very true. Very true.
It'd be ideal. You think about all the hunting opportunities in Victoria when you do look at that app. There's a substantial amount of ground if you just look at a map and compare it to South Australia, there's plenty of spots where you could have, hunters in there with the public. It would be safe. You'd obviously I think they need to be managed. You have some sort of proficiency, whatever. But that's just the worst excuse.
Yeah.
But that in itself being managed, that's creating jobs, creating revenue, for the state economy. Like that in itself is a good thing.
Yeah, definitely. Even just a licensing structure like what they've got over there for hunting and fishing is worth millions of dollars.
Mm-hmm.
Like, even just, I know we've got to have that basic SA hunting permit. I don't cost you bugger all or whatever, but even just some sort of licensing system, if you did go down that track, would just be huge money.
Mm.
Yeah, crazy.
Has there been any considerations of that in their sort of decision making to eradicate?
I don't think so.
Not sure. Yeah.
Not that I know of. Like, it's definitely every opportunity that I had at, when I was on the committee level of the ADA, when you were meeting with government bodies or bits and pieces, we always threw that on the table. And obviously that would be being done by the national board guys as well at a higher level. But yeah, as in my experience, it's definitely been mentioned as often as possible. And personally, I've been to a Meet the Minister. I went and met with the Minister for the Environment, might have been, 7 or 8 years ago, on the ADA's behalf, and showed him our booking program and how it works and how we can manage hunters, and basically offered it to the state government, saying, look, why don't we utilise something like this? And just nothing comes of it.
Mm.
It just falls on deaf ears over and over again. Yeah, which is disappointing. But yeah, you just can't give up. The old saying is, the noisy wheel gets the oil, so we've just got to keep being that noisy wheel, I guess.
That and kick out Labor.
Perfect, Joe. Well, thanks, mate. That's really great. Look, big thanks to you for the work you're doing and have done and continue to do. So we wish you all the best with certainly that group you're involved in now, and hopefully that gets up.
No, we'll keep you all posted anyway.
Definitely.
Cheers.
Yeah.
We're keen to see how that evolves in that space. But I think what we might do is get into a bit more about you and the man behind the mission, and why you're so passionate about what goes on down in the southeast as Couch opens another beer.
Yeah.
Well, 12 years. If you're saying 12 years is relatively young, I guess, in the deer hunting experience. Well, your 12 years equates to most people's 50 years of deer hunting.
Yeah, I definitely get a bit obsessive. With all of my hobbies that I've had over the years, once I get stuck into something, I find hard to let go of it, and I really just throw myself at it. As a young kid, I raced karts, and then I raced dirt bikes, and it was the same sort of attitude with that sort of stuff. And then, when I fell in love with hunting, it was just every spare minute you had, you would try and make something happen, look for different opportunities, and save dollars to make trips happen that you might have dreamt of or whatever. And it's just gone from there. I haven't done as much as what I would like in the last sort of 12 months. It's just work's been so busy, and with a growing family, obviously things change. But there was a few years there where if I wasn't hunting bloody near 30 weekends out of 52 a year, I wasn't having a go. And that was just weekends, not mixing in weeks where you had off hunting too. Just loved it. Shit and breathed it. So
that's the way. Sounds good. You mentioned you're down in Mount Gambier. Have you always been down that way? Is that where you grew up?
Yeah, so born in Mount Gambier. We lived just out of Mount Gambier, in a farming area called Sutton Town, just north of Mount Gambier. But was born and bred there. Lived in town with my parents till I was in my early teens, and then we moved just out of town into a similar sort of suburb or country area, you could say. I have basically worked in the same place my whole life. I started working for my family. It's lucky enough to have its own spring making business, which we're sort of blacksmiths at heart. So I sort of started working there, in my school holidays, even when I was at primary school, sweeping the floor and mucking around, making springs and bits and pieces. And I ended up buying that business when I was 20 off my grandfather, becoming the fourth generation owner of the business, and it sort of tied me to the mount. So, yeah, I'll probably be here for a long time yet, I'd say.
There you go. Nice. Covers off a couple of questions there. I like that. Their old first job. No, that's good, man. Hey, now here's question 2 for you. What's your favourite food? Is it a deer recipe? Is it something involving venison? What's your favourite food?
I thought about this when I saw you shot through some questions you're going to ask me as a bit of a warm-up. And I was talking to her about it with my missus, and she just cracked up and she said it has to be schnitzels. That's because I'm a sucker for a snitty, and I don't care if it's beef schnitzel, chicken schnitzel, venison, pork, duck, whatever. I'm just a snitty man. So, yeah, obviously shooting a fair bit of venison, the old Veno schnitzels get a fair run here. So, yeah, that's probably my fave, I'd say.
Too easy. We love it.
Do you have any tips on how to make a good venison schnitzel?
Yeah, what's a good crumb?
I don't mind the old panko crumb. We use a fair bit of that, and you can get all different flavours of them, which is pretty cool. We've also got sport the missus one year and bought her a Thermomix, so you can make your own breadcrumbs with them. So, yeah, you can use different breads, homemade breads, and make your own crumbs and bits and pieces. But nice thin schnitzels, give them a tenderise, the old flour and egg and trick, and I reckon you can't beat it. Plenty of oil when you cook them, nice and hot.
Do you have a go-to cut of the deer, like that you'd make a schnitzel from?
Oh, look, because we're so lucky in the southeast to be able to shoot decent numbers of deer, it's just any cut for me. Like, there's plenty of times where I'll use back straps and stuff to do schnitzels, which, you know, people might not have the access to the deer and cringe when you said that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've literally turned whole animals into schnitzels. Like, it's just...
Would you rate one cut better than the other, or are they much muchness?
To be honest, I think it's much of a muchness. Yeah. To be honest, if you want to cut them a little bit thicker and not tenderise stuff, obviously your prime cuts will produce a better schnitzel. But if you're giving them the same treatment overall, it'd be pretty line and ball, I'd say.
Yes, that's one thing I haven't tried. Oh, it's so simple, eh? A venison schnitzel.
Oh, mate. You haven't lived. You got to do it.
From a man who judges every pub in Australia on how good their schnitzels are.
Yeah. Well, if they can't do a good snitty, how are you going to progress to a steak? Because they ain't doing a steak well, mate. It's common sense.
Oh, very good. All right, Jake, who inspires you the most, mate?
Yeah, it's a really good question. Probably use a pretty broad answer and say my family. Mm-hmm. I'm very lucky to have a reasonably big family and a reasonably young family. So when I was young, I had nearly all of my great-grandparents till I was 7 or 8, 9 years old. So I got to know all of them, which was pretty cool. But I've still got nearly all of my grandparents, and look, and my parents obviously as well. I think they've all been huge role models to me, and they're people I look up to, and they've really helped me shape who I am and what my family's like. So I know it's a pretty broad answer. It's not a singular person, but I'd probably say my family, I reckon.
Yeah, no, that's good. Must be something in the water down there if all your grandparents are still kicking around.
Certainly ain't Murray water.
There was no TV and it was candlelit. What else do you do, I guess?
Nah, fair enough. It's a good answer, mate. A lot of people sort of said someone in their family.
And Trump.
Or Trump. I don't know if he's a wild card.
Speaking of family, like, who actually taught you to shoot and hunt and sort of, built that knowledge within yourself?
It's pretty funny how that all come about, because no one in my close family was a real passionate hunter or shooter.
Yeah.
One of my great uncles was a really passionate shotgun shooter and was reasonably skilled at it. I think he was in some sort of state team or Australian team. So there was sort of some shooting ability, I guess you could say, in the family, but a fair way down the track. But my grandfather bought a property over in Victoria, and it was just riddled with kangaroos. We're sort of surrounded by the native forest or pines and bits and pieces, and the numbers there were really problematic. And regardless of what type of fence and how you maintain it, we're always having root problems. So we applied for the right permits, and I think par at the time would have been maybe 65 or 70, maybe 65, applied and got his gun licence. And went into the gun shop and said, right, I've got roos, rabbits, foxes. What do I need? I want to. And the bloke said, oh, you probably need a 22. You need a shotgun. You need a centerfire. And anyway, come out, I think it was 3 or 4 guns out of that. And we basically taught ourselves how to do it. I was a young teenager with a grandfather that, just wanted to fix a problem on his farm, and we just made it happen. And we ended up with really big permits for the roo numbers, and basically learned how to shoot on a 243 shooting roos. Just wore the barrel clean out of the thing, basically. It was a lot of just shooting off a ute, really, spotlighting.
Yep.
And then it wasn't till we actually started to see the odd deer on our property that it sort of just, sort of made you think of something else to shoot. And we were sort of captured by the animal. We didn't shoot, and we thought, how cool is this? We've got deer on our property, they've just turned up. And it sort of made you think, well, righto, instead of just chasing things around on the ute, maybe we could go and chase things around on foot. That might be a little bit more challenging. And a couple of bike friends that I had a similar sort of growing interest in shooting and then hunting, and it sort of developed from there. We did a couple of little hunts on our property, which turned into nothing. And our first sort of real experience was the Vic High Country. Went chasing sambar over there in, I reckon it might have been 2014 or something like that. And that was, the trip that really started it for me. And just went from there,
Did you manage to knock down a stag?
So that first trip, we learned a huge amount. Green as green, and seen a few stags, but 2 of us out of 4 managed to shoot hinds. So we shot 2 hinds between the 4 of us, and saw stags. I wouldn't say shooting opportunities. With the experience level we've got now, hell yeah, they would have been shooting, opportunities. But back then, no way. To look bag of sambar, regardless of what it was on our first trip, was, probably pretty lucky, and helped just gain that a little bit of confidence and momentum to just want to do more. And at that point, that's when I joined the ADA Southeast branch, sort of looking for access, and started pushing around in Victoria and the state forest you can hunt, and sort of built up from there.
Perfect. It's a very similar journey to a lot of us, I guess. I remember Josh and myself, like our first trip over to the high country in Victoria chasing a sambar, like we had no idea what we're doing whatsoever. So we were happy to come away with just a bit of knowledge.
For me, I've been lucky enough to hunt in quite a few places around Australia and over the ditch in New Zealand a few times. And for me, the high country, it's still the number one. It is just a beautiful part of Australia. It's like sambar belong there. They've still got the upper hand on you. The elements, the country, the challenges, you can make it really hard if you want to. And for me, it's sort of developed into backpack hunting, which is something that just ticks all the boxes for me now. Absolutely love it.
I've got to ask you a question. What pack do you run for your high country trips?
I've got an XO now. I think it's The new latest one's a 4, isn't it? So it's the one prior to that, so it's a 3.
Mhm.
Before that, I had just a Morocco 30 75 litre pack. That was the pack that sort of got me into the backpacking scene, and it was a good pack. But as you got older, you started to do more miles and rely on the gear harder. It just got to the point where I thought I could physically push myself harder with a better pack. And yeah, tested out mate's XO, and I'm really happy with it. Obviously, there's some pretty cool packs once you start sort of spending those dollars, and it's sort of hard to get your head around when you do bang some bucks on something like that when it's just a backpack. But yeah, absolutely love it. It's a good thing.
How do you find its like ruggedness, I guess?
Yeah, it's only done so far probably a half a dozen trips, so it's not like you've really had the opportunity to really test it. But all my mates always hack at me at how fucking rough I am on the gear, so I'm pretty happy with it because I've been pretty rough with it. So yeah, like most of my stuff, I treat it as a tool, and you wear it out and you buy another one, and yeah, it seems to be copping it so far.
Yeah.
That's what we want. Alrighty, Jake, what's the most dangerous thing you've ever done, mate?
Yeah.
You don't have to incriminate yourself either, mate.
Yeah, look, racing motocross for a long time is pretty dangerous. Sustained a lot of injuries from racing bikes. I wouldn't change it for a thing because I absolutely loved it while I was doing it. Like racing competitively at a local level and state level for, would have been, I don't know, between 5 and 10 years of my life. I absolutely loved it, but yeah, it beat me up pretty hard. Broken wrists and collarbone and shoulder and elbows and cracked eye sockets and just all sorts of random shit. Like it beat me up, so it was pretty dangerous. But getting on the piss and doing silly stuff probably tops it. Like young fella, we've all been there, and you think you're unbreakable. I broke my neck on a quad bike, half sauced up one night. C1 and C2. Was in a pinless halo brace for 3 months and a neck collar for 6 after that. So that's probably the most dangerous and stupid thing I've done, and lucky enough to recover and be half normal after it. But yeah, for me, that probably takes the cake, I'd say.
Yeah, wow.
You're pretty lucky because then is it like the old saying, C1 to 5, stay alive. So you break like 1 to 5, that's it. You're pretty much dead.
I don't know how many times I had the doctors tell me that you're lucky to still be alive, and then let alone walk away from it. And apparently, there's I can't remember if it was the lines that either return or exit your brain that go down your spine. One of them was crushed and the other one was damaged. And if both were crushed, she was just lights off. You're dead. So that's actually healed now, so which is a good thing, obviously. But yeah, at the time it was that close. So yeah, I don't bother with lotto tickets or any of that shit anymore. I've already won in that case.
So you're in the neck brace for what, 3 months, then 6 months after that.
So 3 months in the frame style.
Yeah.
I had to give it back. I wanted to keep it, but yeah, they rebuilt them and reused them. I was one step off of having 4 bolts in your skull with the cage sort of arrangement. It wasn't that one. It was like a Velcro put on, but it had a fiberglass and carbon fiber frame to hold your head in position. That was 3 months, and then 6 months with a soft collar.
Was there any sort of change in life in the last, like in the 12 months after that or something like that? Like what difficulties?
Yeah, I had to have repetitive scans to check bone growth and progress and whatnot, and the exposure to sport and everything. I basically didn't do anything physically dangerous like that for 12 months. which was hard because I've always, rode bikes, water skied, barefooted, buddy. Like, I just love
It's all the fun stuff.
adrenaline kicks. So I've always done shit like that. To then have to go cold turkey and turn that off, it was super hard. And I'd only owned the business for a short period of time too, so it really loaded up my staff and obviously my family and everything too. Like, it was a challenging period of my life, and worked through it. And just a huge thanks to my family and friends and everyone for supporting me through it. It was hard yakka, but they were all just so good. I was very, very lucky to have a good group around me. Yeah.
Yeah, nice.
All right. Well, it's probably some good advice not to have a drink and jump on a quad bike. But, Jake, what is the best piece of advice you've ever been given?
Like what you just said.
Was that given to you before the accident or after?
Now, that was my segue, mate. You can't steal it.
No, I like the old one. Drummed into me from a few family members. You get what you pay for, and that's something I've sort of stuck by for me. So I've always tried to work on that, and I think a lot of the times it's got me out of trouble where shit might have let me down. So yeah, that'd probably be mine, I'd reckon.
Mm-hmm.
Fair enough. Does that mean you tend to buy expensive items first out?
Look, if it's something that I know I'm going to stick with, yes, I would rather go without and take the time to save up and buy the best I can afford. Yeah, usually. If it's something that I'm not, wildly enthusiastic about, or don't see that it needs to be, a higher quality product, or what I see as a better product, I wouldn't bother. But I've always tried to buy the best as I can afford at the time when it come to my bikes and hunting stuff. Definitely. Yeah. Yeah.
I'm getting the vibe that you could be a Land Cruiser owner.
It's probably not worth it.
No, it's a good call. Only recently, I have got a couple of cruisers now.
A couple.
But yeah, never had one as a young fella. It wasn't till I got to the point where I could justify the expense and afford the expense. But yeah, I always wanted to cruise a wagon, and I've got a 105 series cruiser that's been our family car for a few years now. And I've just recently done up. I bought a 79 series dual cab, and that's sort of our go-to tourer family car now at the minute. But yeah, it took a while to get to that point, and it's sort of, might have only happened because you got to make sure the tax man doesn't end up with most of it either. There's sort of, in your business, life can be a little bit different like that. But yeah, it fucking hurts. It still hurts.
Now, we did see that set up on Instagram. That's a very nice addition. And what was your journey like with getting hold of a 79? Because Josh's has been terrible.
Yeah, it wasn't much fun. I placed the order and got told sort of 12 or 18 months, and it ended up being, I think, 16. So it was within the time frame they expected, but you never had real clarity on when it was going to happen. So it was very hard to, those next steps. If you're having custom work done or things built for it, when do you do it? How do you go about it? How do you book that shit in? Even, having the money or the loan lined up or whatever for the ute and the accessories, you got to juggle that around till the time comes. So, it was all right, but fuck, I'd love it if you could have just walked in and bought it and had it.
Yeah.
It ended up being, by the time we got it and set it up, it was basically, not far off 2 years. So it's a fair while.
Yeah.
It gets you pretty anxious. So what, you still waiting for one, or?
Yeah. Oh, we got a delivery date. It's the end of this month, actually. But I've been doing because it's been so long and times have changed, and fuels. Oh, but you have to be a billionaire to afford fuel now for anything. Like I'm questioning my life choices, going, is this the right decision?
Yeah, well, they aren't the most efficient bus, but I guess it depends on, buddy, what size bags you end up putting on it and accessories and shit. It all plays a big part. But, yeah, expected to use anywhere between 15 and 25 litres per 100, depending on what you do. So,
You see, the other side of this argument is I've got a 2004 Hilux, and that thing, it's pretty much the same economy. I was like, well, I'm not getting ahead, but I'm also not regressing.
yeah, it's hard. Fuel at the moment gives you the shits. I don't understand why it's bloody as dear as what it is, but it's just part of our lives. You just got to deal with it, isn't it? Lucky for me, as I said, with the business, it's another tax deduction. It's another cost that lowers your income in one respect. So I don't get as wound up on it as what someone that wasn't lucky enough to be a business owner might. But yeah, they're certainly not the most efficient vehicles out there.
Definitely not.
Yeah.
Well, Jay, a couple of nice Toyotas in the stable. What is your most treasured possession, though?
Yeah. I was going to say my wife, and I thought that sounds a bit rough because it's like I'm treating her like a buddy, an object, trophy or some object I can, put in the cupboard and get out when I need it. Which when she watches this or listens to it, I'll probably cop one for saying that. But look, I'm lucky enough to own. I've got a CR500 RE Honda, which is the last of that big two-stroke ever made. They did 1 year where they were road registerable.
Oh, yeah.
So it's a bit of a collector's item. That's probably my favourite toy or possession, I would say. I bought that as an apprentice. I had an old XR 600 or whatever it was at the time that I was using as a commuter to ride to work, as well as having my motocross bikes, but that was my knock-around bike. And I just saw this one day in a tyre shop. One of the blokes had it, and it was, reasonably original. And I said, did he want to sell it? He said, my gearbox has just blown up in my Falcon, like I probably need to. And he said, you can have it for $4,500. And at the time, that was still cheap. They weren't worth, they might be worth 15 or 20 grand now, something stupid. But at the time, they might have been worth anywhere between 5 and 10. So it was reasonably priced. I thought, fuck, I need to sell this bloody 600 and buy this thing. And apprentice, I didn't have much money. But I'll put the bike in the paper and see what happens. And I sold the XR the next day. And I thought, fuck, this has got to happen now. So I hit the old man up. I said, right, I need to borrow $2,500. And he's like, well, I don't really have the money either. And I told him what it was for. And he's like, oh, fuck, righto. Like, I'll see what we can make happen. And yeah, spotted the money off the old boy and bought the bike and have had it ever since. So paid him back, of course. He says if I ever sell it, he wants his money back and the fucking money, the value it's gained in the meantime. But yeah, I'll never absolutely love it.
He reckons he's an investor in it.
Yeah, he's part owner of it, so.
Very good. Oh, it sounds like an opportunistic purchase, so well done. Well done.
It was at the time, and yeah, I don't know. It's like having a fucking Holden Monaro in the shed if you're a bike lover, It's a pretty cool thing.
Yeah.
Sweet as. Oh, we like it. All right, well, let's turn it around a little bit here. What's your favourite movie, Jake?
Favourite movie? Look, I'm not much of a TV person, to be honest. Like, I've never really sat down and watched huge amounts of TV or buddy books or anything like that. And even in this day and age media, like I'm only just starting to, listen and watch the podcast and that sort of stuff too. It's just never sort of been my gig. But now traveling and whatever, listening to the podcast and stuff is magic. So I've sort of opened that up. But movie-wise, I don't know. It's probably corny but I like Top Gun, and I like when they made that. Like, I know it's pretty wanky, but it's just sort of feel good action movie. I don't know. As a young kid, I used to love Terminator 2.
Yeah.
Both good choices.
Yeah, but it's not like I'm a die-hard fan. You know what some people are like when it comes to movies. But yeah.
Oh, you'd be surprised. There's plenty of people we've had on the podcast who are more interested in being outdoors than being inside watching movies. So, sounds like you're one of them, man.
Top Gun's all right,
Oh yeah, you're doing
Top
it
Gun's
right.
though. Yeah, good. It's all right.
Colleague of mine, a new colleague of mine, he just had a son and called it Maverick. So
Yeah.
Hell,
It's committed.
had an effect on him.
sure did.
It's better than Goose.
Brother Goose soon to follow.
I hope so. That'd be funny.
Yeah, well, good on him. All right, well, Jake, who do you reckon should be a guest on this podcast? Recommend someone for us, mate.
I reckon Tim Blackwell would be pretty good value. I don't know. Have you had many taxidermists on?
We haven't. We're looking to get one on, actually, so
Yeah.
it's probably a good one.
I've tried contacting him a couple of times. Actually.
He can be a hard person to get a hold of. Tim, he's a very busy boy. Works shift work, and then the taxidermy stuff. And then when he's not doing that, he's shooting animals somewhere. Like I think he's either in or coming home from a Northern Territory buff hunt at the moment. But huge amount of hunting experience, and then his involvement with the ADA, obviously at a top level. His exposure to a fair bit of stuff there, and then the whole taxidermy thing would be pretty cool. If you could get a hold of him, I reckon Tim would be good. I'll razz him up for you.
Sounds good, mate. Well, we found with taxidermists, they either don't want to get their name out there too much, so they're inundated with work, or that's pretty much just why they don't want to come on so far.
Or they're too busy, they can't come on.
or they're so busy they can't.
Yeah, I reckon he ticks most of those boxes.
I'll have to pin him down, mate. All right, well, when you did get out there hunting for the first time, what was your first firearm that you started with?
So I had no idea what to buy when it come to cartridges. I had done absolutely no research, basically. So the gun shop was actually next door to the Springworks.
Made it easy.
And so convenient. So I just used to go in there and bounce ideas off of him. And I said, look, I want to start deer shooting. I said, what caliber should I use? And he just said, well, what sort of distance are you going to shoot over? I said, well, I'm only new, like fucking closer the better. And he said, do you want to spend a heap of money or not heaps? And I said, I want to buy a good gun, but I don't want to have to spend huge money on bullets. He said, just buy a 308. Like it'll do most things. And he said, it'll be legal in Victoria. Fuck it, that'll do. So I bought a timber stock Seiko 85 in 308. At the time, had to save a fair while to make it happen. But I've still got the gun. It's pretty sentimental, and I don't shoot it that often anymore. But sort of grown out of the cartridges, I started to shoot a little bit further and started shooting a greater range of animals. But to start off with, it was great. It was reasonably cheap to run, just the old core-lock job like a lot of people were running back then. I bought I think it was a VX2 1250 loophole scope and put on it. And it did the job for quite a few years. So, that was my first gun.
Yeah, perfect.
Nice.
The only issue with that story is you left the 308 caliber world.
I took it to New Zealand when I shot. I went over there chasing tar with a mate that was a rifle hunter and two bow hunters. And it really, that's probably the point opened up my eyes to, bullet drop and that sort of stuff. Before that, I really had no idea. The gun was sighted in for 100 and you're only shooting things at about that. none of this rangefinder binos or any of that bullshit. It was you get close enough that you knew you were going to kill them sort of deal. Then when we went to New Zealand, and Dave, one of the bow hunters I went with, had a bit of experience, and he's a nutcase with the bow, but he just said, you'll have plenty of opportunities over here to shoot a tahr if you want, but you ideally want to be able to shoot 250 or 300 metres. And I thought, fuck, look, I don't know if I can do that. Went out to the farm and set a target up at 300 metres and thought, I'm struggling to see that, and shoot a couple of shots, and I'm hitting the dirt well and truly before it. I thought, right, well, I'm going to have to start learning how this all works. And yeah, once you figured out that she's a fair bloody plop and drop with the old 308, it took a bit of getting used to. And then, the use of a rangefinder over there, I was lucky enough to shoot a tahr. It's not a massive bull, but shot a tahr on the west coast of the South Island with the 308 at about 330 metres. So
yeah, got the job done.
It got the job done. And like it did on plenty of other deer. So, it's a funny calibre. There's plenty of people that rag on it. But, when it comes to just a good old all-rounder, I can't see an issue with it.
And cheap, to be honest. Like, you're right. It is an affordable calibre.
Especially for people that don't reload. Like, I'm not a reloader. I'm a little bit time poor. And the attention to detail that goes along with the whole load development and that, it doesn't sort of turn me on. So, like, I still buy all my ammo I run a 300 Win Mag now for basically everything, just all deer species. So I've got one gun that's sighted in. I don't have to change it. It's just easy. But yeah, using what I think is good ammunition, you're spending $4 or $5 a shot. But yeah. You look at how many shots you put through that rifle a year. It's fuck all in the big picture. I'd spill more than that a bloody year. Ammo than what you put through the gun. So, yeah.
What's your 300 setup?
I bought another 85, but I thought I bought a synthetic stainless. And a 300 Win Mag, and I started off with a Swarovski. How does their system work? Is it a Z3? It was a 412 for 50. I think it's a Z3.
Oh yeah.
And then in the last couple of years, I ended up buying a Z5. So a little bit greater range of zoom with a dial-up turret, so I've started shooting a little bit more long range, more just on the ADA blocks when it's, there was high numbers to shoot. When there'd been influxes of deer from wherever and it was a numbers game, it just meant you could shoot more deer when you were there. I certainly don't call myself a long-distance shooter or something that I really enjoy doing, but it was just another tool handy to have in the tool belt, if you know what I mean. So, yeah, that gun has been a great thing. I absolutely love it. It's just one of those guns of mine that it feels at home when you shoulder it. I just love the thing. Yeah, it's rough as guts. Like I treat it like a tool. It's been dropped, it's been thrown, it's been used as a bloody walking pole. You look at it, if you showed someone and you told them how much it was worth and what it looks like, they'd probably want to bash you over the head. I just love the thing. I just hope I don't ever beat it up enough that I can't keep using it or it's not repairable.
Yeah, nice.
I think as long as the action's good, you'll be all right. Rebarrel it, restock it, you'll be all right. Seikos are awesome.
Yeah, I do love the feel of the action, and that's as a young fella when I wanted to go and buy that gun, and like I said, I wanted to buy the best I could afford at the time. He basically put a heap of different centerfires in front of me and just said, cycle all the bolts, see how the magazines come in and out and whatever. And yeah, the Seiko action I thought felt silky smooth, and I liked the removable mag idea and bits and pieces. It just felt right for me. So that's why I went that way. Yeah.
Perfect. That's the beauty of personalising a rifle to your taste.
Yeah.
Who cares what your mate thinks? Like, it's set up for you.
Yeah. And what works for you might not work for other people as well. That's the beauty of it.
That's it.
I know what it's like. Yeah, sometimes you might borrow a gun in a situation or whatever, and yeah, half the time it doesn't end right. I'd never forget. I was chasing reds in New Zealand, and we had an opportunity to push further on this property we're on and go and chase chamois. And it was a guided hunt, and the old Snow, the fella I was with, he said, if we're going to have a crack at these chamois, it'll be long distance. We should use my gun. It's over there running suppressors, obviously. It might maximise how many shots we have at the animal because it's a bit quieter. And anyway, we ended up spotting a pretty decent buck, and I had a few shots at this thing and missed, and it was like a consistent miss when I missed each time in the same spot. And yeah, it just pissed me off so much because I just thought it might have been me at the time. It might have been the gun, I don't know. But it was sort of one of the only times where I sort of felt like the equipment might have let me down. And if it was mine, it might have been a different result. So, yeah, I've always since then, it's just regardless, I'm using my own gun. I don't care if it's not the best gun for the situation. At least I know I'll perform as best as I should behind it. So, yeah, you definitely get used to them, like when you're doing a bit of it, for sure.
I agree, but it removes the ability to blame the other person. Right.
Yeah, that's a good point. I never thought about it like that. Poor old Snow, I should just be real dirty on him and say it was nah, it was a hell of an experience. Like I learned a lot that trip, but it was still good fun. And it's given me, I've got the excuse to go over and chase chamois one day because I haven't had a chance to shoot one yet, and I'd love to get back over there. So that'll be a one-day job.
Perfect.
Yeah, man.
Have you been anywhere else internationally other than New Zealand for hunting?
No, not at this stage. I sort of once I got the New Zealand bug and went over there chasing tahr, it's an awesome spot to go and hunt. Hunting is more part of the community and the lifestyle over there than what it is. And even deer, just a number of deer farms and that sort of stuff. It's a hunter's paradise. So to have that so close, it makes it so much more affordable to do than other international hunts like there. Yeah, there's like probably you guys, you've got a list of shit you'd love to go and hunt and places you'd like to go and hunt. But for me, it got back to affordability. Like I think that self-guided tahr trip back then might have cost me $2,000. I had the gear obviously, but the cost to make that trip happen was a couple of grand. So it was affordable. That was heli flights in and out. And obviously your plane ticket over there and back would be a lot dearer than that now. But the international hunting scene, a lot of it, big stuff gets turned into American dollars and it just gets out of control really quickly. So, and the experience might not be, it might be an animal that you'd love to shoot, but the experience might not be that different, if you know what I mean, like what you're exposed to. So, I don't know. I'll probably go back to New Zealand before I go anywhere else internationally too, I'd say.
Yeah. If you could, where would you go? Well, money wasn't an issue.
I would love to do one of those horseback style hunts, chasing moose or elk in, either, Canada or Russia or somewhere like that, I would say. Like really remote, really push yourself, would be an unreal experience. One of those ones where, you might get boat planed into a camp where then you get on your horses and you go out and you're in the same country as bears and all that sort of shit. That's probably, if money wasn't an option, that'd be it, I'd say. I've always thought it'd be nice to try and achieve one day, even if you're old, but you wouldn't want to be too old that it's going to be too hard to do either.
True.
I don't know. It's something that's just, it's a maybe one day, but it's the money. It's big dollars.
I reckon Russia would be cheap at the moment.
Yeah, I did think that when I said that. It's probably off the cards at the moment. old Putin's stirring the pot pretty hard there. So it'll be interesting to see. I noticed, I think Australian hunting consultants were still offering hunts in the Ukraine somewhere, and I thought, right, that'd be interesting. I wonder where. Like,
And for what?
we're not
Hunting Russians.
Yeah, or you think you're going over there to go and shoot an elk or something, and they're just going to drop you off the front line. Yeah, I was sort of blown away when I saw that. So,
Yeah, that's a bit different, eh?
It's amazing the opportunities out there. Like, I watched Jim Shockey hunt Russia on his channel, and I didn't even think there was opportunities to hunt Russia until I saw Jim Shockey's show, and I'm like, wow. And then you got places like Pakistan. You're like, yeah, it'd be an awesome experience to hunt any of that.
yeah, there's definitely all spots over the world that you wouldn't even have thought there might be animals like that you can go and hunt. I know. I think it's meant to be really hard to do, but I've seen that people hunt sika in Japan, and like for me, they're probably the most enjoyable deer species to hunt in my books. Like when I hunted them in New Zealand, they just blew me away how vocal they are and aggressive and mobile. And I just thought to hunt them in their, place of origin would be pretty unreal. So that'd be another one that'd be on the wish list. But I don't know how you go about it because I think hunting is basically banned or whatever to the public there. So there must be some sort of way you can make it happen, but it sounds like it'd be wildly expensive. So, yeah.
So was that self-guided free range for sika in New Zealand?
It was guided. I went with Aaron Kent, and we hunted in the Karwekas, which was free range. That's like going and hunt national park, basically, over here. So he had a small deer pen that he sold estate hunts as well, which was basically red deer to mostly Yankee clients. The big buddy, crazy genetic sort of stuff with the tree trunks on their head that they come over and hunt. So he, his cream was sort of selling those sort of hunts. But ever since he could walk and talk, he hunted sika, and he was sort of known as the sika man over there. And I went over with a bloke that I met through the ADA that's no longer a member of the branch anymore. But, it was a really good experience. We battled with weather to start off with and couldn't get into the mountains with the helicopter, so it was delayed. So we ended up hunting. He had a lot of state forest, or like what we'd call state forest. I don't know what it's called over there, around his deer pen. And that's where I shot my big trophy. I shot a really nice 8-pointer. Over there, he's that fella.
Go up.
Up a bit more.
Oh,
Very nice.
Yeah, that's outstanding.
Yeah, he's an absolute cracker. So it gave us that opportunity to hunt around his place, and because he had so many, it was during the rut, and because he had so many red deer on his place, and the sika rut at the same time as the reds, basically, it's like deer pens in areas. It draws deer to them. So there was wild deer floating around the pen. There was shit getting out of his pen. It was hectic. But it gave us a really good base, and it was a social base too. You were hanging out with Yankee clients that were shooting stuff in the pen, or might have been doing free range stuff like us. So you were there at night, and then you go out and hunt in the forest, and there was sika running around, crazy fishing opportunities at the start of a trip. Managed to bag a stag of a lifetime, which was awesome. And then we finally got into the Karwekas, and we went with one of Aaron's workers, and because Jace hadn't shot a stag yet, he said, well, you've got a bit of hunting experience. Do you want to hunt by yourself? and me and Jace will go and chase a trophy, and I'll try and help him out a little bit more. I thought, well, that's fine. Like, I'm lucky enough to have a stag on the ground. So I was sort of cruising around, learning the ropes by myself, and I managed to call in a small 4-pointer and shoot one in the Carwackers as well. So it was really cool. And it was just, a call that I'd played to myself on the phone a few times. Yeah, started calling and carrying on and had this stag answer me, and I sort of thought, oh, fuck, look, this has actually worked. And literally shot this thing, no scope, at about 6 metres. It just came fully charging at me.
Wow.
Like, I had to jump out of the road and just spin the gun around and just pop. Without even looking down the scope, was just down the barrel, whack, and blew this thing over in front of me. It was the most exhilarating experience. And they're just a tiny little deer too. Like, they're just such a cool animal. So it was really, really rewarding trip. And just exposed me to a different species that I just thought was, very unique. And for any hunter that likes chasing vocal deer species, like, you might love chasing roaring reds or fallow or something like that. Yeah, if you're going to go over to New Zealand, definitely have Seeker on your radar if you can make it happen.
Well, I might have to put that into next year's March trip.
Just another box to tick, but yeah.
Oh dear! Did you manage to get a sheep over there at all?
The sheep game over there, I don't know if this is how it works everywhere, but I thought it was a little bit crooked, to be honest, because there's meant to be, I can't remember, is it Arapara or something, the Rams?
That's the one, yep.
And I definitely saw some sheep running around in some of the blocks that we were hunting with Aaron that were free range, but he'd also said a few chucked away lines that, he'd bought sheep and let them go in bits and pieces and basically just throw them in as, extras for the American hunters to, sort of spice deals up or whatever. And it sort of just left a bad taste in my mouth to just think, well, are they simply just being put here for people to pop? It's not like they're that hard to hunt. It's not like they're a big mountain of sheep. And the ones we saw would have just been like shooting sheep in a paddock. So I didn't. Hey, it might be totally different elsewhere. So I really can't, say that's exactly what it was like. But my exposure to it definitely didn't get me excited. So.
Yeah.
Oh, that's fair.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I got a Porsche on for shooting sheep, man. I don't know. I just want to do it. I don't know.
Well, thinking sheep, you can spend some real dollars there if you want to go and shoot some big sheep.
Oh, yeah.
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 Wow.
You're not that rich.
Crazy.
Oh, I think you've mentioned it before, Josh. Head on to Pakistan or wherever it was.
Oh, yeah,
but
man.
All your money goes into the security detail that's going to follow you around, make sure you don't get killed.
Yeah.
Well, all your money, you mean like $100? Oh, they'll be like, yeah, I'm rich. $100 in Durham, man. Like, yeah. That's how many packets of cigarettes that is. It was.
I have no idea.
It was like like 5 dirham, which is like $1.25 for a packet of durries.
And you're not smoke.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. Not that I smoke, but that was
now.
Yeah.
I think that's everywhere they go to Bali too, isn't it? You get on the Bali bangers because it's fucking cheap.
Yeah. Stuff smuggling weed and a boogie board on stuff, durry packets in there.
No, it didn't. Well, Jake, as we sort of bring this thing to a close, what's the next steps for you? Like, what's coming up? Is there a hunt coming up? Is there some more work to be done in the fight against the heliculls, or just getting the word out there to people?
Well, I was actually meant to be sambar hunting at the moment, so unfortunately, just work commitments a bit too much at the moment to be able to get away. We had I've got 3 of my mates at the moment that are in the mountains. We'd sort of planned a 10-day backpack hunt in the Vic High Country, chasing sambar in a spot that we've been working the last few years. So that's sort of happening at the moment that I'm missing out on. So I'm a little bit bloody fired up about that. So I'll probably try and get over there before it gets too hot, even if it's just a 4 or 5 dayer. But you just start battling with snakes and that sort of stuff and hotter days. So, yeah, I would like to get over the high country in the next couple of months. We do a bit of it's a social weekend with a group of friends where we've got access to go and shoot some goats on a heritage listed block where they're a bit of an issue up near Karoonda in South Australia. We usually do that mid-October, and we usually, between 10 of us, we usually shoot 40 or 50 goats. So we'll go up and have a bomb up on the goats. That'll be a bit of fun. And, you know, if we shoot the right animals, we try and bring a bit of goat meat home. So, yeah, they're probably the 2 next hunting bits and pieces I'll have happening. When it comes to the actual standing up and advocating for hunters and working on this helicopter stuff, I have been talking to, a couple of politicians, which is sort of ongoing. I'm trying to make a face-to-face with our local member here, Troy Bell. I've sent him all the articles from the ABC and some other data that I want him to look at and consider. So that's, short-term personal stuff. And then this group we're trying to organise to try and be some sort of face for hunters will be the long-term project, and then getting it exposed and up and running and trying to achieve something. So, it'll be busy. I've started doing a little bit less with the ADA. Like, I was obviously president there for a few years.
Few years as well.
Probably both, yeah.
That's the best Freudian slip I think we've ever had.
And beers fits in there as well. So I'm doing a little bit less there, which has just opened up that time to do that personal stuff. I thoroughly enjoyed the time, in the top seat there and working with hunters and landowners for the deer, but just come to a time where it's healthy to have change and turnover, and they're still on the committee, but I don't know how much longer I'll stay on the committee. It's just a time thing. You've got to try and spread yourself where you feel as if you're needed best. And, I just think personally I can achieve a little bit at the moment, so I keep chipping away at that. So,
Perfect. Well, we have to say a big thank
you. You guys got anything lined up between you?
Well,
I do.
Josh has got New Zealand next year.
Vic hopefully again this year.
Yeah, we'll get across the Vic again.
Try it.
High country sometime before the end of the year as well. Other than that, just probably southeast stuff, mate. To be honest.
Yeah.
As I said, these 2 boys have just been away this weekend that we're recording this, and
Muzzle to Vic.
Yeah, should have. Yeah, Pop Smoke should have just gone. There was nothing out. It was horrendous. Not for a lack of trying, except for this morning, because we all slept in.
Yeah, I think it was a bit discouraged from the nights before, or the hunts before. But it was sort of, there was 3 of us out there, and we all went our own paths, and none of us saw anything. So
it's a bit disheartening, and it's sort of, there's going to be a lot more of that happening.
There was a lot of feed about, and there was a lot of feed through the tea tree as well. So that's probably why they're not coming out, because they don't need to.
Yeah, so, exactly. And that's certainly, it's not unusual this time of year. Like, the behaviour of the females changes drastically too as they get, closer and closer to fawning. You just don't see them. They're pretty content, as you said, staying protected and fed up. And even the bucks too, they're just going to be all over the place once they're mobbed up and drop the antlers. It's just pot luck, isn't it, really, with that sort of...
Pretty much.
It is.
Hard time of year to hunt South Australia, I think.
Yeah.
And then, with everything else thrown in the mix, there'll be a few no-gongs, I think.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's it. Oh, well, it's all part of the fun of hunting. But, mate, we've got to say a big thank you to you for the work you've done today and are going to continue to do. So I'd say to all our listeners out there, watch this space for anything that Jake puts out. And yeah, mate. Even more so, thanks for coming on the podcast tonight and sharing a bit of your story and allowing everyone to get to know you a bit better.
Yeah, no, look, thanks, guys. It's been an absolute privilege, and I've thoroughly enjoyed it. And yeah, hats off to you. You run a really good show, and looking forward to seeing it. Hit the waves and see what people think. I'll be interested to tune in and hear yourself. I don't know how I'll handle that.
It's different.
Yeah.
Yeah, it would be.
Everyone hates the sound of their own voice the first time, but, mate, you'll get used to it, don't worry.
Good on you guys. It's been great.
No worries
Thanks,
at all.
mate.
All right, well, we hang on the line there, and we'll have a bit of a yarn to you, but we'll wrap it up. And, make sure you tune in next week as well for another episode of Centre Mate Podcast. Thanks, guys, for listening, and thanks to you boys for asking Jake some great questions as well. You've made a nice night for me, actually. You've done some research, done some good questions. It's all good.
That's been good.
Anyway,
man.
we'll leave it there. Big thanks to you, Jake, and
thank you.
cheers.
Good on you guys. Cheers.
Thanks, mate.
No worries. All right, catch you next week.
Gotcha. G'day, dude and dudettes. Josh here. Do you find it hard to keep your long, hard barrels free from gun STDs? Maybe you need a clean out of your bore. If this is you, jump on over to highcaliber.com.au and use the promo code SENDITMATE to receive a 10% discount on all your gun cleaning needs. And remember, it's sexy to support Australian-made products. Everyone here at Send It Mate uses High Caliber, and we can promise you that it'll keep your firearms free from those pesky gun STDs.